Call my disabled child lazy? Lose your job and get sued. I am the mother of a 13-year-old boy who was diagnosed with narcolepsy in the past years. Before my son's diagnosis, I could have never known how awful some people can treat innocent people with disabilities, and I'm still a bit furious about the treatment my son experienced. Ever since he was little, he's been an extremely sleepy child. I had suspected it might be something medical when things only got more serious as he got older. He used to nod off exceptionally easily and generally had very low energy. He eats a healthy diet and never had any other issues, so I always suspected he might have some sort of condition that was restricting his energy. I have been wanting to take him to a specialist for years, but we live in a small rural town, and I couldn't afford for us to travel far to the nearest specialist. It took me forever to find one in our area that took our insurance. I wanted to cry with relief when I hung up the phone after finally making his appointment. After some tests that took place over a couple of weeks, my son was diagnosed with type 1 narcolepsy, which means he has sleep attacks where his body will enter REM sleep immediately, and he expresses sudden muscle weakness during these attacks. It was certainly hard to learn that this was something my child might deal with for the rest of his life, but I was grateful to have some answers and tips from his doctors on managing his condition. As I said, my baby has always been a sleepy child. I've gotten complaints from his teachers before about him nodding off in class, but they've always been understanding. I've never dealt with a truly nasty teacher of his until now. My son's school got a new teacher last month, M.S.Divine. She teaches one of my son's classes while also being his homeroom teacher, so he spends a lot of time around her. She had only been working at the school for a week when I got an email from her explaining how my son kept falling asleep in her classes and that if he didn't correct this behavior, he would be punished. I emailed her back, saying that he most likely has a medical issue regarding sleep, and that he was currently being tested by a sleep specialist so we could start understanding his specific condition. I was shocked when she replied with a nasty email saying that she was sure my son was just being lazy and that it wasn't good parenting for me to make excuses for him. She insisted that I just needed to put my child to bed earlier and that sleep was a simple problem to fix. I was disgusted with how disrespectful and ableist this woman was acting, and I requested a meeting with the principal right after receiving her last email. I was already grossed out by her behavior, but after speaking with my son and getting the full story, I knew this woman needed to pay. Call my disabled child lazy? Lose your job and get sued. In my first post, I explained how my son had been being harassed by his ableist teacher while he was in the process of being diagnosed with narcolepsy. After I had received some inconsiderate and straight-up rude emails from his teacher, M.S.Divine, I scheduled a meeting with the principal. Before the date of the meeting, I asked my son if M.S.Divine was ever mean to him in class, and he told me the entire awful truth about what had been going on. Apparently, there had been multiple times when my son had accidentally dozed off, and M.S.Divine had woken him up by pulling him up by his neck. My son started crying as he accepted this after he saw how upset I was at this new info. He just said that she kept calling him lazy, and he had started to believe it and just didn't want to make a big deal since she was an adult. By the time the meeting came, my son had been officially diagnosed, and I had official medical paperwork proving his condition. I was already in the process of getting his school schedule adjusted to better suit his needs before the meeting. I went into the meeting with the principal and the counselor with printouts of M.S.Divine's emails as well as my son's medical documents. I read the interaction between me and my son's teacher out loud, and both the principal and counselor looked staggered. The principal immediately started apologizing to me about his staff's lack of accommodation towards my son and told me that he would speak to the teacher individually. I told him that wasn't good enough, then I mentioned how she had been putting her hands on my son. The principal and counselor exchanged a panicked look when I shared this detail, and I started talking before they could respond. I said that I wanted the teacher removed from the school due to her behavior, or I would go ahead and sue them since I had documented proof of her discriminating against my son for his medical condition. Both staff members started rambling, saying anything to get me to reconsider, but all they said was that they couldn't fire M.S.Divine since she was tenured. I told them that wasn't good enough and that I would be moving ahead with suing the school and M.S.Divine. I won't lie, the case took a long time to settle, but at the very least, the school removed my son from M.S.Divine's class after my meeting with the staff. It was such a difficult year. I was dealing with the stress of the court case and adjusting to my son's new diagnosis all at the same time, but in the end I'm proud of myself for following through. Because of the clear evidence of M.S.Divine's ableism in her emails and the type of language she used, combined with my son's testimony, we won the case. Not only was M.S.Divine completely removed from her position at the school, but we were awarded a pretty good settlement as well. At the end of the case, I sat my son down and reminded him that no one is ever allowed to single him out for his condition, and that I would always protect him against those types of people. I showed him how much money we won, and I told him I put it in an account that he could use when he was 18. I also told him I was sorry he had to go through this in the first place. It's been a hard year, but I'm happy I defended my son and that he got something out of this painful experience.